Hey, what do you know? We're back with another exciting episode of Prop Talk with myself, Chris Call, and Mikey Trudel.
Hey there.
Hey, Mikey. I just want a couple of things I want to knock off here real quick. First of all, I just want to say how much I appreciate you, Michael, and all the stuff that you do with Prop Talk and how you set everything up and all the cameras and edit everything, and you're working, man, and everything. And, I mean, Prop Talk wouldn't exist without you, so... I appreciate you, brother.
Well, we've been getting pretty good at like, I have a job that's going to take me away for a while.
Yeah.
Like that's what I said. I was like, my wife was asking me today. She's like, aren't you like pretty much good? I was like, I want to get this one in, and I want to get the next one that we had to reschedule in. And I was like, and then we're good until the end of my job. And I think we're always really good at that. And we take each other's schedule into consideration.
Yeah,
so thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
We get them in when we need to.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say real quick is, I've been reading a couple things on Crew Story lately about people in other markets, and a lot of the discussion that goes on Crew Stories about how people have a lot of animosity towards other regions. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows out there, because we are in Hollywood and everything that's happening now in the industry and how it's affecting Hollywood, we talk about that a lot. But here at Prop Talk and the PMG, we represent prop masters everywhere, and we support work wherever our people could get it. Okay, It's hard for us to watch other markets come back for sure in a lot of ways because we're not coming back, but we support, and we are really happy that everybody out there outside of LA is getting work. So I just want to say that, make sure that, because we have a tendency, or I have a tendency at least, to talk a lot about Hollywood because this is my market, but we represent everybody. So
yeah, we represent property masters.
That's correct. Today, I'm very excited about our guest because this is the first time we've had a first AD in the house, Ross Novie. Ross, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm glad I'm here so I can help organize things.
Yes.
Right away, I have a lot of notes, but we'll get to what you got to talk about, and then I'll make my fixes.
100%, and that is it in a nutshell. I mean, we've already been talking a lot before we got on mic. I'm happy that we finally are rolling because we're like giving up all of our great stuff. But for me, and I'm sure for Michael as well, we're mentioning that the number one relationship outside of a director with me is the first AD. Okay, and there's a reason you're called assistant director because you're doing everything that the director can't do, which is pretty much everything.
Which, by the way, I hate the name assistant director.
Oh, good.
It's probably the thing I hate.
What would you
most.
prefer to be called? What do you think you should be titled?
I don't know if associate director or some sort of like on-set producer or something.
Yeah, because you're all those things.
Because you do, it's a totally different job to getting coffee and all of that. And,
right.
and whatever. I'm a big boy. I understand that. But it still just doesn't, for those not in the business, you don't know what that person does. And it's a challenging job, and I just feel like it gets a little disrespected just by the nature of what it is.
We actually, and I don't know if I'm going to get some flack for this, but I actually, like, on the jobs that I can, I've been starting to change my assistants' names to, like, props utility and props supervisor to take the word assistant out of it.
It's the same concept, yeah.
It's the same thing, but and most of them have been letting me do it just because I was like, I think it will give more respect to the name because they do, like, the truck person is the prop supervisor because they do so much more than just an assistant prop master, and it defines their position a little bit
Maybe
more,
that's why, like, Best Boy is so good because no one knows what that is, so it's not, like, disrespectful or respectful. You're just like, I don't know. What the hell's a gaffer? I don't know.
Whatever he is, he's the best at it.
Right. He's clearly good. Best director.
Well, maybe they should you should change your title to real director.
Sometimes that's true. Sometimes, but
100%.
All
right. Well, before we jump into all of that, I just want to. What's your background, Ross? Where are you from originally?
I'm from New Jersey. I came out right after.
That's why I like you.
Yeah, graduated. Well, it can go either way. So I came out right after college. Mm-hmm. I had a girlfriend who was from here, and so I decided let's move to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. On the road driving out here, we broke up in Colorado, but I ended up still coming here.
You transported her the rest of the way?
Yeah, no, she's wonderful.
No, she's still in Colorado.
Yeah, but the first of my relationships in California. But I had heard about Roger Corman's B movie studio in Venice. I'd read his books. And
Okay.
I went to Cornell, and a bunch of people had worked there.
Oh, you went to Cornell.
Yeah.
Nice. Right
So-
down the road from me.
Yeah, so
Fancy.
upstate
Binghamton.
New York, Binghamton, yeah, absolutely, right down the 81. And so I landed there and got a job interning, which meant just working for free back then. There was no college credit,
Right, of course.
which, by the way, they don't do that at all anymore, and it's a shame because. I mean, certainly you get exploited, but I got a paying job a week after. It was
Right.
a way to
100%.
break in, and they
make
don't do that
the
anymore.
connection. Yeah, exactly.
Right?
It's my way of getting in also. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I was key PA a week later, and that was it was basically a film school because we
Right.
did a new film every month, usually using the same sets, the same wardrobe, the same props. And just like we do like 3 space films in a row and 3
Right,
Westerns in a row. And so I did 16 films in like 16 months.
Wow.
And went from PA to
Child
first
Rate
AD
Fire.
in a year.
Yeah.
And
Did you go to? What did you go to school for?
I was a philosophy major.
Okay.
Which was perfectly appropriate or not, depending on your
Yeah,
philosophy.
100%. That makes a lot of sense now.
But I was a big Woody Allen fan, so I figured it was a way to understand his films better
Right.
at the time.
So you got into film because you just wanted to understand Woody Allen films better?
No, I always did.
Wait a minute.
I had
It's more like you got into philosophy because you wanted to understand film better. Is that it?
it was partly it,
Okay.
right? I enjoyed that, but also I was definitely inspired by certain films and ways of dealing
Sure.
with thinking. But I always made films. My parents had a video camera, which they didn't know
nice.
how to work.
Okay.
So from when I was 14 years old, I was making
Right.
films in my living room.
Excellent.
And doing Lego Men and Creatures and all
Nice.
of that. And in high school, too, I was like head of the video club, which we made
Excellent.
films.
Yeah.
So it was always something, even at college, I was making films. So it was always something I was doing.
Heart of a filmmaker.
Yeah. And once I saw that politics was just whack, I confirmed I was going to go into film. So then I came out, worked in independent film, got into TV with the show Even Stevens
Okay.
around
Oh,
2000.
yeah.
And fortunately was able to get out of children's TV and go
Yeah.
into some really good shows. I did Lucky, where I met the Russo brothers, and then I did Arrested Development.
Right.
And then The Office and It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And,
shows,
got on a
brother.
good run of
Yeah.
great comedies, which, as we know, once you're on a few good credits, it makes it easier to get other shows.
Yep.
You first AD'd Arrested Development?
Yeah, we did the pilot and then the first 3 seasons, not the other stuff.
Yeah. I hear that show is a trip to try to manage, huh?
It was harder for the writers, funny enough. It was crazy. Like, we wouldn't get a script until
Like
like
the day
Monday
of?
morning of shooting.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I would just say, all right, well, Jason Bateman, you can learn things quickly. Michael Cera, we'll just meet in the living room. We'll shoot a scene. We'll end up reshooting that scene later because the new pages will come.
Yeah,
But,
Wow.
let's not have Jessica Walter until Wednesday because she's going to freak out and get angry. So we got our flow.
Yeah.
But like we were at the rap party for that, I think. Yeah, rap party season 3. But we still had a week to shoot. And it was at the rap party that Mitch Hurwitz, like the showrunner, said, hey, what do you think about shooting at the Queen Mary in Long Beach? And I'm like, well, we should check into it because our last episode is this week. So
I was going to say,
we should
after
see-
you rapped?
Well, I mean, we happened to have the party before, but it just
Okay.
showed the absurdity of
Right.
like how late we'd get.
Yeah.
Which seems like a pretty big thing. Like we've been
The Queen Mary.
leading to this for 3 seasons,
Right.
but we didn't know
Right.
we were doing that until late. But it was fun and fast. And
Yeah.
hours were good, and the cast was great, and the crew was great.
Probably polished the hell out of you as planning as a
yeah,
first AD.
18 scenes a day,
Yeah.
and pre-shoots and reshoots, and it just flowing, and it's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. I mean, I wanted to ask you about, from looking at your resume, it looks like you've done mostly TV. Did you do features before you moved into TV, or?
Yeah, after Corman, I
After
did a bunch
Corman,
of
right.
indie movies. Back then, it was a lot easier. There was the PM Entertainments and Trimark
Right.
and all these like indie films. So I was doing that, and since getting into TV primarily, I still do a decent amount of features. I just finished 2 features, independent comedies here in LA. I did a Jane Fonda movie a couple of years ago. Like every year
Right.
or 2, I do a movie.
Sure.
Still.
Yeah. I
Good
mean,
Burger 2, I did
Do you
a couple
prefer
years ago.
television? Because it's such a crazy fucking schedule.
It's they're different muscles, and I appreciate them both. I mean, the movie is fun to do like a long-term project where it's
Right.
like this slog.
Yeah.
But TV is more of a job, better or worse, where
Sure.
like you have a place you go to work every day.
Right.
Yeah.
And it has that different energy, which is much better for raising children and
There you go.
having an outside life,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
That's why
my
I
kids
did
are
it.
now both out of the house. But like growing up, I was very fortunate to be in LA
Yeah.
and having TV shows where
Right.
I would get a hiatus week and I'd know I have something coming up, and that was invaluable. But now, like, the idea of doing movies
Yeah.
is fun.
Because
and
like
going
Good
abroad.
Burger 2 is in Rhode Island,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We had
Naturally.
we had Heidi Coletto on the show not
Okay.
too long ago, so
Hey.
talked a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah.
The madness
Yeah.
of throwing food around.
That was, we're still in litigation over a lot of stuff on the floor.
Yep.
Someone fell.
Yeah, we heard that story.
I'm still getting emails about not deleting my other emails, but it happens. You know,
Those are
you
too much
squirt mustard and
transparency.
ketchup everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, fun times with food.
but it's nice to be able to do both, as I'm sure you guys like. You know, commercials are
Yeah.
the ideal career would have. You're bouncing between it all.
Sure.
And because again, it's different muscles and
Yeah,
there's different,
absolutely.
and different groups of people too.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, all of which is what I love about the business is different projects and different.
Right.
Maybe we'll talk about it, but one of the things I love about prop masters, and the thing I love about my job too, is like you have to be an expert in so many different things.
Correct.
In every show, you need to learn. We're on a medical show together. You
Right.
need to know everything. So when the actor goes, well, what would I do here?
Right.
You know, you can be there to help. And I love that about my job too, is like every job you get into it.
Exactly.
And learn about something new.
Exactly, and that's again, that's what I love about my relationship with the first AD is that we both read the script and then we like meet for the first time and we both know what the hot points are immediately, you know, and so we could say, okay, well, I know you need this, and you know, I could tell you what I need, and we're kind of on the same page already.
Well, an early part of the relationship I find is, and I'm sure you might have better context for this, but is how, I assume people listening know this, but when an AD breaks down a script, you know, there's a little bit of a figure out like, well, how deeply do I want to break it down?
Right.
And one of those areas is with props,
Sure.
right? So we could do a party scene and I could go like, all right, there's cups, there's forks, there's spoons, there's knives. I mean, you can go to infinite depth.
Right.
I try and highlight only the critical
Yeah.
points
Yeah.
or something that came up in a meeting that you maybe don't read about.
Right.
And very quickly you see with the prop master, like, well, how much tracking do they need? The best ones are accounting for things I'm not even thinking about.
Right, of
and
course.
asking about things, well, what about this? Do we need this? Like,
Yeah.
great. Do we need the DJ with his own stuff? And
Sure.
and then ones who are maybe less steady, they're needing more from me.
Right.
But there's like there's 1,000 points of contact
Oh,
between the
yeah.
different development, and that's like one of the first ones is in the production meeting or concept
Right.
meeting. What are they asking about? Are they deeper than me on this?
Right,
Are they
right.
with me on this? Are they less than me
Right.
in terms of the
Right.
detail?
Yeah.
Which comes out pretty
Yeah,
quick.
and
Right.
that's it for. And again, go ahead, Maggie.
No, yeah. I was just say with that one, it's like there's conversations that don't hit us immediately through because you have like, oh yeah, there's a party scene, there's cups, and but you may have had a conversation of like, oh, we're also gonna have a whole catering team here, but it's not in the pages. That's
Right.
something that you you got to connect the dots for us because they're like, okay, yeah, nobody said that there was a whole catering like portion
Right.
of this. You know?
Yeah.
Right, and if you guys find that out and I haven't mentioned it, and then I go, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you there was this catering thing, then you're learning about me too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so it's about how much can I be ahead to help you,
Right.
which is ideally as soon as I know it,
Yes.
or close to it. And so those are the relationships that that start, growing together.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because we're a collaboration, and I could speak for myself, but I think I could speak for most prop masters. Going into a new project, and you're meeting the first AD, that's the key thing in your mind is this person an ally, or is this somebody who's going to be a stumbling block for me? And I'm sure you feel the same way about prop masters as well. But again, Mike, you're just talking about meeting a prop master who basically says we're never waiting on props. That's the first thing that comes
first
out of their
saying that,
mouth.
yeah.
And it's like, well, okay, well, that's a problem. But that's also good information, even though it's you don't want to hear it.
Yes.
You know what you're up against,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me,
It's like there's a whole shootout scene. Like you gotta have some
100%.
flexibility on that.
yeah, and I've been on TV shows where it's a bad AD and it just ruins the experience for you because you're going to be fucked the whole time. Okay, so
Well, part of that too. So information's important.
yeah,
But also, both accountability and also protecting the crew from being blamed for things.
Yes.
And that's something we were talking about how I was terrible with starting out, but I used to be more not trying to. I've always been. I'm never afraid of being accountable or screwing up. In fact, to me, that's a big thing. Is if you screw up, to say, "Look, I'm sorry, but I'll fix it." We move on, right? It's people who duck that. I have very little patience for. But I used to point out when we were waiting for different departments more.
That's
not because I wanted to blame them, but because I thought it would help. Like, okay, everyone,
Motivate
so we
them.
know this. Once this is done, then we can move forward. But it's terrible from a management perspective because then people feel ashamed. There's multiple reasons why they're not ready, and it ruins the trust between people.
Also,
because I can put it on my shoulders.
Right.
The director will be like, okay. Or if something goes wrong with camera, I'll go, it's a technical. I don't go, the second AC blue focus, or first AC blue focus. I just go, it's technical. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what you learn is like, don't put the onus on other people and make
people
them
under the
feel
bus.
terrible. That's not a good
I think
work.
with TV especially, I would say is like if you want to see where the prop master usually is like in an office, sometimes close by set, they'll have a walkie at least in their offices. And you want to get a prop master to show up on set, just say, okay, we're waiting on props. And it's like, what?
100%.
And you'll see the prop master busted with like, what are we waiting on?
Yeah. Or now that we have Q-Take and I could get it in my office, I can watch the scene as it's unfolding. And I've had instances before where I'm like, he's there's he needs hot tea in this scene. And he's like, yeah, I'm working on it. I'm like, I'm watching it. It's not happening. It's not there. Okay.
Man, the assistant prop masters have to hate Q-Tape. It's like, hey man, where is this thing I gave? It's not in this scene.
Yeah, that's funny.
Now, the flip side of that is also, my whole job is avoiding things to be waiting on, right? That's everything, is anticipating.
100%.
And props has one of the more complicated jobs, even just basic, but also then there's specialized gags and all of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm always, like it or not, we have to have a lot of discussions to avoid that moment that the whole machine comes up to that and doesn't, the stick doesn't go in the spokes of the bike.
Right.
And so the relationship is definitely, my best relationship with like you, Chris, is like, I know you're on it. I know you're ahead of it. We're seeing that. And when I don't see that in a department, then I get very stressed out because there's 1,000 times a day that's going to come up.
Right.
And then I got to be thinking like a prop person, like, all right, what's in the next scene?
Right.
Because if they haven't brought those things, if they haven't talked to the cast already, did you show them the retractable knife? If I have to start thinking like that, it breaks down the relationship pretty quick.
Yeah.
Right.
You know when you've gone on to a job where like the previous prop team was like that, because I mean I've gone on to like take over jobs before and immediately the second AD starts showing up every night on the trailers like, okay, let's go through the props for tomorrow's work. It's like, I have them all. Like, what do you want to know? Like we go through, and then by like the next week, they stop showing up.
Right. Yeah. And you've been hurt, right? You've been hurt by another prop team. And I'll be like, yes, I was hurt. I'm coming off a bad experience, bad relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing. Like, where's my girlfriend going right now? I'm going to track her. It's that kind of vibe.
Yeah. No, but I get it.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, like when you. Again, most people know what you do, and I think I know what you do. But when I step back and I look and think about everything a first AD does, I mean, your job is so fully encompassing. You're basically the ringmaster of the circus, right?
Yeah, and it's two jobs in one. Kind of, there's the pre-production, which is sort of breaking everything down, reorganizing it in the most efficient way possible, so that the schedule is efficient. That it. We're doing the best value with our money in both cast and all the elements, stunts, special effects, everything.
Producers.
Actually, the second part is making sure everyone knows that stuff. That's the important thing, is sharing the information so they can all do their jobs. And then there's the set work, which is its own different thing, which is making sure it's a productive set, a safe set, a happy set, an informed set.
Sure.
And all those little things that are happening that come up, all those little relationships, managing them and de-escalating whenever possible, and dealing with the interesting artistic temperaments that different people have. So there's different elements. It takes a lot of different types of skills. And trying to be good-humored through it all, which I love my job. So that comes
one of the
easier.
great things I love about you, Ross, is that you do bring that humor, and you're very entertaining. as an AD.
Are you going to bring up my safety meetings on
your safety meetings are something to behold, for sure.
I need some new material. So basically, on St. Denis, what's great is we're on stage, the same stage every day.
Right.
But we have to, per NBC Universal, do a safety meeting every day.
Sure.
There's nothing to say. I mean, there's really that's just the
You're
truth.
doing the same day as yesterday.
Yeah,
almost.
If there's an earthquake outside and
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
all that
right.
stuff. But there's not much to say. But I got to say it. So just to keep myself amused, I started looking up different facts across the internet about like what happens if a bear, attacks you, or a snake bite, or
That's right. What's the most
or if you
dangerous
lick
animal?
a frozen pole and your tongue, what's the best foods to avoid getting scurvy. So. And then we did a test at the end of the show, and our camera operator won, and he got some Starbucks gift cards.
On who retained as much
The most information,
facts?
and the job is also I was trying to sneak so now everyone wants to listen to whatever little safety thing I have.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
Right.
There's some entertainment value to it, but I need a new bit for next season. I'm out with that. We need just new material. Yeah.
But again, I think it's an important thing that you're doing because again, you are showing the whole crew that you're the go-to, you're the guy in charge of what's happening on set. Because again, I know it's a little thing. I just did, like I said, I did this shoot yesterday, a video shoot, and there wasn't an AD. Okay. And I mean, you'd think you might not need it.
There wasn't an AD?
No, not at all. There was the director who was also the producer.
Mm-hmm.
And, she's great. I love her. And it was a complicated shot. It was a Steadicam shot that went down all these stairs and then came into a courtyard and she danced around and then came over to a bar and talked to a guy and then went over to another table and got a bite of something and then did another spin and went over and sat on a table and then came back to the bar and got a drink. Okay. And that's like a oneer. Okay. and we broke it up because we had to, but I mean, she came in the morning and was like, I think we're going to be out of here really early. We wrapped at 7. We were and I said to the camera department as we were getting the last shot, I'm like, now we're shooting nights. And they're like, yeah, and we don't have any lights. They were just kept stopping it down and changing the iOS. And it was like,
That's something else I learned when I was younger is don't promise that you're going to be out early.
Well, that's just
I hate when
I used
they
to make
do
that mistake because I didn't want people to feel like, oh no, we're going so long. But now it's like, no, be trying to accurate,
right.
but slightly overestimate.
Well, and again, that's the point is that you can pace out the day. You know what the work that needs to get done, and you know how long it takes to get those, and you can be assisting the director in, okay, we got to get moving on or we're not going to make our day. Right? Because they're thinking about 1,000 other things and I could see it in real time. She's trying to make sure she's getting all her shots. She's talking to the poor singer who, is very young, and she's also trying to make sure that everything's getting done, that the things are getting set up and blah, blah. It's it became so apparent to me when there was no AD, what happens when there is no AD.
Yeah.
And she didn't make the day. I mean, I don't know how she's going to cut all this stuff together, to be honest with you, because the light was completely different from when we started until when we wrapped, so I don't know. I mean, it's a small little, indie, music video, so it's not really going to matter, but
I mean, the lessons are the same, and it's for both our departments, is you're trying to assist the director.
Yeah.
From every department
Yes.
on not just doing the thing, but getting it the best it can be.
Right.
And most of us have a lot of experience, sometimes more experience, but just a lot to share because you've gone through these things before. I've gone through these things before,
yeah.
but it might be the director's first time dealing with a certain gag.
Right.
Or a certain idea, right? But you've seen it not work and work better, and ideally the best people also understand filmmaking, so you can go, well, that knife's not going to play or it's not going to work.
Yep.
Right.
And to help guide people so they're not making the wrong decisions, not wasting the time.
Right.
Just because we know.
Right.
Because otherwise, some things you want to find on set, but usually it's not like,
Yeah.
oh, that I do need a rubber double for that.
Yeah.
Because now
Sure.
I'm screwed.
Yeah.
Because I can't make the hit look right. Or I
Right.
need a breakaway here. Or I don't need a breakaway here.
Right.
I didn't need 30 breakaways.
Yeah.
I was going to say one of the things I love, the late Phil Shea,
Yes.
he did this to excess.
Unbelievable.
But a fun prop thing is always in a meeting where it's like, oh, well, how many times do you need that bottle to break? And the director will be like, 3. And we'll look like, all right, so 6.
Right.
And then Phil would bring like 20.
Right.
Right. So he'd always go extra. But there's always this translation of like the director's like hopeful.
Right.
And then I'm like, no, it's going to need more than that.
Yeah.
And then usually the prop person will always like fudge that a little bit further,
Right, sure.
just in case, because something will break. And, so that's kind of
Always.
that, but in everything. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's so. Well, and again, from a perspective of props, and again, we're talking mostly television here, okay? Because it's a different animal than features. Because for me, the scary part is always that we have all these meetings, all this conversation, all this planning in prep, and then it becomes a different animal when it goes to set. Mm-hmm. Okay, and like for me, for the master. You're not on set most of the time unless something's wrong. That's what I always tell people. I'm like, I'm not
TV,
usually on set unless there's a problem.
Or maybe some casts who are tricky.
Right. Or there's a prop that's complicated or whatever, like the freaking phlebotomy arm. That wasn't
Sounds
you,
like a
right?
crazy story here.
No.
That was a nightmare. Anyway, so there's
Episode
things.
worked.
Yeah, it did. They cut it together beautifully.
Yeah, but I heard about it.
Yeah, it was not fun. So the relationship, with the first AD in prep, let's walk through that a little bit, for people, for younger prop masters, because again, to me, this is the most important relationship because again, everything that's going to happen when you shoot is going to be led by you, so the first thing that I always find that we have to talk about is like, if there's complicated props, and this from me, the first thing I say is, when is this on the schedule?
Yep.
When are you scheduling this thing? Because this is the big thing. And why is it, Ross, that it's always on day one?
Well, what you do, and if we're trying to, help people, it's definitely, you're good at flagging things right away.
Right.
Because the AD is going to be dealing with all sorts of cast restrictions and location restrictions. And there's so many things in terms of what's taking priority.
Yeah.
And even to the point where you'll flag it, and then I'll schedule something, and then I'll remember,
Right.
And go, oh, jeez, no, I'm screwing him. And then sometimes I'll have to call you back and go, what about day two? I mean, that happens all the time.
Absolutely.
Because it's triage of like, I'm trying to make the best everything work.
Right.
Right. And it doesn't always come together, but that's critical, is to let me know what's going to take time to fabricate or whatever.
Right. And from a prop master standpoint, it's good to understand that you do have all those things on your plate. You do have all those factors that you have to take into consideration. So even though our world is very narrow, you have to be able to communicate that so you can make sure that whatever can be done.
Because also it's always going to be after locations and cast.
Right. Right.
It's like, that's just what it is.
Yes.
Right.
100%.
Right. And so, but after that, then it's as important as, or more important, I would say, than wardrobe. Usually I'd probably push on them harder.
Sure.
Because the props there's lead time there.
Right, especially if they're complicated or they need to be manufactured, things like that. And again, that's an important information for prop masters to have, is where something's going to play in the schedule, because that informs how much money you're going to have to spend to get it done and how fast you're going to have to push. So you can go to your producer and say, yeah, this thing, I could do it for this, but it plays on day 2, so we're going to have to pay a rush charge to get it done.
I've also, and I worked with Phil on many, many shows.
Right.
So
Right.
I just want to, this is coming from a place of love, but he had certain peccadillos, right?
Yes.
So,
Right.
and we worked on just so many things. But like I would say, okay, we have this on day 2. And maybe it was like a box.
Right.
And he'd be like, I can't have that box until day 4. I'm like, I can't wait for a box. Like those things would happen all the time. Like, I feel like when you say something, I'm
Right.
like, okay, well, yeah, that's
Right.
I understand that. But sometimes he would pull stuff out.
Like, hey, didn't he ship a rock in from like the East Coast because
Yes.
it played from the East Coast? Or
Yeah,
something?
he'd get it from Scranton. Like,
Right.
we're waiting for a rock. I'm like, we got to shoot the rock. I don't know what to tell you. And he'd get angry, and I'm like, at a certain point, I can't do it for everything.
It's
You
almost
gotta
it's
love
almost
it.
the equivalent of method acting. It's
Right.
like-
Method props for
was
sure.
method
That was
props,
Phil
yeah.
Shea in a nutshell.
So to your
bless
point,
him.
it's like you're giving me information, but we all have to be judicious in what we
Sure.
ask for, and like,
Right.
and then that can you could just say like, hey, this is really going to be hard, and this, if you can help me, not so much.
Right.
And just flag it in that way helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like for locations, like when you're going on a location and you need to be able to know what the load in is and how long those things are going to take. Communication is just everything. And again, I can't stress how important it is to have that open communication with the AD, because the AD is your ally more so than anybody else. Again, like when you're on set too, when you were filming on set and somebody asked for something, the first question is to the AD, how much time do I have?
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
How much time do I have? It's a really important thing.
Well, another thing that it's important for on-set people to do is, if there is a problem,
Right.
let me know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I will not be very favorably disposed if we get to it and it's too late. Because
Right.
I'll be like, I could have swapped a scene. I could have done something different.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can't help now.
Yeah.
And so if there's things come up, that's my job, is to
Yes.
mitigate those, but you got to let me know.
Yeah.
And that happens sometimes.
There
People
was-
because they're trying to make
Right,
it
yeah.
work.
Trying to make it
And
work.
I get that. And even just say, hey, there might be a problem,
Right.
but and look, you can't do that all the time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, maybe
Sure.
there's a larger problem.
I know.
Right.
but you got to let me know.
There was when we were doing American Horror Stories one time, there was like these like figurines that started to like adapt throughout the stage of the episode.
Okay.
And so there was 4 different stages of it. So we had these custom made like devil figurine things.
Right.
And my onset at the time, we go through, we were at the same location for a week. So it's like day 2, and then she comes up, and I think I mentioned something in the morning. Goes, oh, how'd that scene go? Then, okay, yeah, this stage was good. And then like her face turned white, and then she looked at me, she's like, oh my god, we shot the wrong it was like the figurine under the
Right.
bed, like a dark shot of it under the bed, or
Right.
whatever, and her face goes
was the
white.
wrong stage.
It was the wrong stage. Like
Yeah.
we shot it and we did it, and
Yeah,
she's like, she
yeah.
came in
That's the
crying. And it
worst,
was like,
man.
and I was like, it's okay, like here's what we do. It's like we walked up first, it's like, hey, let's just like pull you aside in the corner quietly. Yeah, we shot the first stage. It's just wrong. Honest mistake, like we're so sorry, like we messed up, whatever. And he goes, it's fine. He's like, we're doing a bunch of pickups and saying we're here for 3 more days. We're gonna send that camera when they're doing there, and we'll just shoot it again for one.
Brilliant.
Don't worry about it. No one else is gonna know, and everybody's gonna know now because I just blasted it on the podcast. But
That totally took me out of that episode. I was watching it.
I
was
know.
like, what is this figurine?
Well, we shot it. And
Yeah,
that was the
yeah.
thing, is like we're in the location. Like we thought it was like, oh, that was like the worst sin we could do. Like the first AD was so cool about, which is like, let's just get it in right away. Let them know it happened, because
Right.
if there's a chance to fix it, we're here for 2 more days. We can.
Well, it sounds like a good idea, and also
Yes.
you guys fell on the sword and just said, "Hey, I'm so sorry." And then what is a reasonable person going to say at that point? Like,
Yeah.
I'd be like, "All right, I'm rooting for you. I'm fighting for
Yeah.
you because it happens, right?"
As
as opposed to just trying to cover it up,
as
and-
opposed to not saying anything and like, oh, I hope nobody notices. By the
Sure.
time it hits the editing floor, then they go through and they're like, wait a minute. It's like
that'd be
someone's
bad.
gonna
Right.
notice at some point.
Right.
you know?
Yeah, and again, that is what everybody should do. But everybody's worked with ADs who are going to hang them out to dry.
of
So
course.
that's where a lot of that is born, where people are like, oh, well, maybe we just shouldn't say anything because we don't want to get destroyed on set. Because, I mean, everybody has had bad experiences
sure.
with first ADs wanting to make them look bad. And I've worked, or not make them look bad, but just make them look bad no matter what the situation is.
Have you done situations where then you don't even go to the AD anymore? You kind of like go to the director or the like. How do
Yes.
you reroute it to try and avoid
100%.
that?
Yeah, you reroute it. And again, I just always try to, if I'm working with any difficult people, it becomes like my goal to like break through with them. Okay,
Right.
Like, I mean, there were department heads on St. Denis that I had issues with when I started. Okay, because again, I was a guy coming in, under Phil Shea, which is like, there's no way I can ever rise to the level of Phil Shea.
I don't think that's true.
Well, I mean, the expectations from Phil Shea, because we
That's
just
true.
talked about
That is true.
I mean, the guy had
Yes.
like 30 choices of every. I mean, I don't know how he did it.
Yes.
I mean, he must have been over budget a lot.
He didn't sleep.
And he didn't sleep.
sleep.
And
Right,
exactly.
right,
He
no.
worked 7 days a week. I
Yes,
get it.
correct.
So it was a large shoes to fill, and there were certain departments that I had issues with that I had to really work hard to improve.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And ADs are like that sometimes too. I mean, again, I'm always grateful when I get on a show and it's an AD who gets it. Okay, because the screaming ADs, as we talked about before,
Are there a lot of them still? 'Cause
I don't.
would have
I
thought-
haven't
Not
come
as much
across them.
anymore.
because it doesn't seem like that'll be stood for anymore.
No,
I think it's frowned upon now. I don't think they bring
I
them
haven't-
back as much anymore.
yeah, I haven't
think
had
you
them
can
in a long
survive.
time because they also don't get it done. It's not how you get.
And in
stuff done.
comedy, that's not a good vibe.
in comedy, it's not a good.
People
vibe.
crying is not great.
No, I've dealt with more incompetent ADs than yelling ADs these days.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So talk about more, because here's the other thing that I deal with a lot is, again, what I mentioned is when it goes to camera, I have to turn it over. So everything that was discussed, everything that happened in all the meetings, I have to rely on my set masters. So let's talk about set masters a little bit, because that's like, again, it only happens in television.
Just TV, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some features, set masters, the assistant runs the set, but a lot of times not. But in TV, it's always that way. So, what do you look for in an onset, a set master?
I mean, beyond obviously like positivity and knowledge and a great relationship with the actors, obviously that's because they're one of the, parts of the tip of the spear, along with like makeup and hair. Like they're interacting with actors all the time, and they need to build their trust. And I've seen where that trust is broken, and then everyone has to it gets very uncomfortable.
Sure.
And you need trust with certain gags as well. So I'm looking for obviously someone who's looking ahead at the next scene and is prepared. Something that not just as an AD, but as a director, like I want to rehearse with the key elements because it'll influence what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so when we get to that next scene and the next set, I want to have everything there and let them play and let them do it.
Right.
And so as an AD, I just want to make sure I don't have to be chasing that down and the person's ahead of me. And again, like we were talking about a little bit, also if there's things coming up that need approval or need to be played with, or you have the actor look at them, that's happening. And then I'm not chasing that down. Again, all about just keeping the wheels moving forward.
Yeah.
The flow. So that's what I mostly look for is, I guess, that
Yeah.
relationships and just being ahead of it.
And then and also about the continuity and being present on set. Like that's another big
being
thing for
present,
me.
but like with a light touch, right? You just
Sure.
know the person's always there,
Right.
And kind of looking
and
watching,
following along, right?
Yeah, at the last independent movie, we didn't have a script supervisor, which was a new one.
Wow.
Are we trying to just cut positions now?
Yeah.
No
It
first
was-
AD on a music video, no script supervisor.
So I was doing that too, telling the slate number and
Yeah.
trying to track. Which, by the way, it's not going to matter. But boy, do not rely on an AD to track continuity. But yeah, like having a prop person who's aware of those things and how they were used and even helping script supervise what hand and all that, just knowing because they're paying attention.
Sure.
They're watching, which I know it can be hard, but that's like, we're all doing that. We're all
Right.
there. So
We don't talk much about how close we are with the script supervisors on set, because that's what it's saying. That my on set's like talking to them every single morning, every
Yes.
single day, and keeping track with a lot of that stuff.
Well, it seems to me, and I may be wrong about this, but it seems to me that continuity is not as prevalent as it used to be.
Like people don't care as much about it.
Right. I mean, again, back in the day, I'm dating myself, of course. The script supervisor was the king or queen of continuity, and everything went through them. And now I have found that that's not so much.
I have a theory. I think when we used to shoot on film, everything was a lot more critical each take because
Right.
there was more money happening each
Sure.
take. So I think there was a little bit of more importance on that. But now we do so many takes,
Yeah.
you'll cut around it. It's like it's just a lot more forgiving, all of it.
I see.
And especially on the shows we're on where it's stock
yeah.
style and it's like you're going to be bouncing around.
Right.
And I've seen how they cut even just performances, where it'll be like outrageously different. My wife, who's not in the business, but she would have been a great script supervisor because she'll watch stuff and be like, look, that moved, look, like she's just, and I don't notice it, maybe
Sure.
out of willful ignorance. But I think that's part of it is that it's just, it's, people could say it's sloppier now. I don't
Right.
know, but like, not as much rehearsing.
Yeah.
We just do it because whatever, it's fine. We're going to overshoot it anyway.
Right.
That makes sense.
Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. There's a couple other things I want to get into, but I want to make sure I'm covering everything. Yeah, we talked about the onset dresser.
Does it annoy you guys when ADs like move stuff around?
Yes.
Fuck yeah.
Honestly, it's not as much. Usually, it's not the ADs that it's the problem with. It's the DPs. DPs touch props more than ADs do, from my experience.
Second ADs.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
interesting.
mean, we had a little bit of that issue on St. D in the beginning. There was one PA or one of the ADs who had it. Because, again, it's a really fast-moving show.
Right.
Okay, so
They were
things
coming from a good place.
They were coming from a good place. She was young, and I appreciate that. But there are things that because if she's doing things, then we don't know what's happening.
Exactly.
Okay,
Right, yeah.
so if you're grabbing something off a cart and giving it to a background person, and then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what happened to that thing? Or like, where did she get that?
Yeah,
We don't know what's going on. So we just had a conversation with her, and everything was fine. But that can definitely be frustrating because again, we're trying to keep track of everything.
Right.
Because if we are keeping continuity as much as we can. And again, every show is different. And this show, because it's so fast paced and it's comedy and it's like docudrama, it's not as important. But nonetheless, it is something that can drive a little nuts.
Yeah.
That's something I had to retrain myself because Roger Corman and Independent, there was just not enough people. So you're doing everything, which, grab those apple boxes, move that flag, like
right.
Which by the way, also I enjoyed. I was like, hey, we're just doing it.
Absolutely.
But then you learn, you're actually making it harder for departments.
Right.
As you go on.
Yeah. So you just have to ask instead. I get.
Although I will eat food off set sometimes.
Oh my
I can't
God.
stop that, and I know that's a problem. And I get that. And it's not the stuff that's been sitting out. I'm not stupid. But there'll be times where I'm just like, I'll have, a chip or an M&M. I don't know what it is. I think it's pathological.
I don't know. People do. I just did the stupid music video I was telling you about yesterday. It was simultaneous with Haichu candy. I still don't understand how the two went together, but nonetheless, we did. I had a big bowl of it on the end of this bar, and every time I turn my back, people are like in there, like picking, a mango. I'm like, hello. It's like, what the hell? I mean, fortunately, I had a giant bag of it, and it really didn't matter. But I've had people like I had years ago. I did a movie with Kevin Spacey where he was playing Clarence Darrow. I had this scene where they were having a card game, and we had like this meat platter all laid out. And I had it in the kitchen ready to go, but covered in plastic. Scene was up, went in to get it, and I looked, and all the meat had been pulled out of it.
What?
It was just like cheese and crackers. I'm like, I lost my shit. I'm like, what the fuck? Who was in here? And it turns out it was the director. It's like, what the hell,
That's
man?
crazy.
You know what I mean? So so that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I understand that.
exactly. How about your relationship with an onset dresser? I mean, in props. I mean, because again, like I said, back in the day, there was no onset dresser. So, yeah.
Oh, really? No, I mean, it's usually they need more. Usually it's one person, they need two.
Yes.
Right.
Can you say that again?
Usually it's one person, and they need two.
Yeah. How does one person lift a couch? Like it's the one thing that like is always driven me crazy about. Like it's like, oh well, they have one person. That's like all we have for it.
Well, I also like it takes about 3 seasons for everything to be put on sliders. There's always
Yeah,
like
that's
the
true.
furniture they haven't figured out yet. Like, oh well, we're gonna have to make that easier to break in half or whatever.
Right.
But it's just trying to help, knowing that they're. A lot of times nothing can happen until they do their job.
Sure.
You make room for the cameras and same thing. It's like, if you get in their way, they'll not reset things in the right
Sure.
way, and things won't match.
Well, I mean, I don't know about you, Mikey, but I kind of look at the on-set dresser as an extension of my team.
100%.
I mean, so if they need something
interesting.
to move, we're supposed to be helping them move it because, again.
No, yeah. I always say call for 44 hands. Like, we'll jump in whenever you need it.
Yeah,
And tell
absolutely. I mean, they ride on our trailer. We carry their kit and all that.
Oh, that's so sweet, guys. No, it seems like you're all, art brothers and sisters.
Well, that's it. Local 44's, in Local 44, it says that they are under the jurisdiction of the prop master once
100%.
Working set goes on.
Oh, okay.
So we rarely hire them, and they rarely officially report to us, but they are under our jurisdiction. And every job that I go on, I always the onset dresser's first day, I always let them know is like, I see you as an extension of our team, so anything you need, let us know. And then by the end of it, usually they're jumping in and helping us clean chairs too. So I mean, it starts to go both ways.
Yeah, again, it's all about a collaboration, right? And we all need to have each other's back.
Definitely.
I mean, we've all worked with on-set dressers who can be impossible too. So
Yeah.
But so the other thing I want to talk to you about is set safety, because we talked about it a little bit with your set safety meetings, but you are the safety officer in charge of set safety, right?
Legally, yes.
Legally.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being interviewed.
No, I
No,
know.
no, yeah.
I'm going to mention the
absolutely.
awful word.
No, for sure.
But I mean, how do you feel about that, though? I mean, because again, you have a lot on your plate. I mean, and it's a lot. I mean, I understand having the set safety meeting in the morning and all that, but like everything that leads up to it. I mean, do you feel like there should be a set safety officer on productions that are autonomous?
In a way, I like how it is. Especially that there's been added reinforcements to do that. I mean, especially with studios, you usually do have a safety person there,
right,
also assessing everything with you, which I think is very helpful.
Definitely.
For sure. Especially because I think that the tricky thing, on the good side of me being the safety person, is I know what's coming up. I'm the nexus. You need someone who is the nexus of information, and who everyone then can listen to. And so the more you diffuse that authority, the more you're actually doing yourself a disservice of too many cooks, right?
Right.
So I think that's important. I guess the reason why I even hesitate is, first of all, legally, it's like there's so many ways you can get nailed on it.
Sure.
Which is both, it makes sense. Someone has to be, but also it's just another way to both screw up my job. And, I don't want anyone to ever get hurt, but there's also areas of expertise I don't have.
Right.
And so I can read all of the safety bulletins. I can do safety meetings. I can rely on the experts, which I do, special effects, stunts, armorers, whoever. Of course, I'm going to rely on them and listen. But, for example, the Alec Baldwin thing, there's a certain point where it's like, well, if I don't know they're going to load a live bullet, which should never be on any set ever, you know, and I don't want to wade into that. That's a whole thing. But that's how I react to it from that sense, without even getting into, whether the prop person screwed up, with the 80s screwed up, and there's other things. Never mind. I'm just saying, as a person who's been doing this for 30 years, you just get sensitive to ways that aren't even my fault potentially, but I can still both lose my career and be liable.
Right.
And so, and by the way, I've had a long career where we're talking about good burger. Things happen. Things happen. You have a lot of people doing a lot of things.
Right.
And even the best case scenario, things can happen. And so I just always, that's my one hesitation, and why I prefer films with more money and that studio support and people around to help, and not having to go overly fast.
Right.
And not being tricky, because I actually find most of the accidents happen when it's not like some big gag.
Right.
That's when everyone's locked in. It's when things kind of just grow. And well, let's do it a little more, or let's go a little further, or let's try that. that's when the things happen.
Right.
From experience.
Yeah, I was gonna go back when we asked the question about 80s touching stuff or something like that. I was gonna bring up safety, but I was like, it's under extreme circumstances. But that's the only time where I'm like really pressing about it. Not a gun, but it's like there's a knife playing or there's something like
100%.
that. And you know what I mean? It's like I'll get really.
Absolutely.
I don't want that to ever happen. Or specific builds of stuff that, like, if you twist it a certain way, it's going to fall into pieces, and we only have two.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I've
It's like-
also, unfortunately, like I've seen, a breakaway is great, but it can cut someone.
yes.
A rubber is great, but it can still hit on the edge.
100%.
I've seen every
Yeah,
version of
retractables
things.
can stick.
Retractables can stick. So
Yeah.
like we all know that now.
Right.
I know that, know, and just someone running, they can slip it. I've just seen it all. And you can get neurotic and never want to do anything again.
Sure.
Yes.
And then you wouldn't be able to make anything. But like it's just trying to walk that line, and especially having prop masters you trust who are also going to be looking out for that.
Yes.
Is critically important. You need everyone to help without being alarmist. It's like a very fine line.
Right.
But make it look best on screen too, right?
Yeah, of course.
I mean,
That's ultimately what
yes,
we're after.
Even the show that I'm working on now. I mean, I talked about it a little bit on the Larry episode, but it's like, there's a huge shootout at the end where they're not pointing at anybody, and they're like, the first thing everybody said was like, we're not going to use any real guns of this, and like I went through and I was like, well, why? Like cinematically, it's gonna look the best. Like you're not shooting at anybody. Like we can do this so safe.
Yep.
We like it's not gonna take up any more time. We should just like do it and fire like quarter lead blocks. And I had to have a meeting. The first meeting was with the first AD. Just straight up walk step by step, like how we're gonna do this, why we're gonna do it this way, what it looks like. Here's some videos of what it is. Here's a paper right in front of the things. Here's like literally every step, and convince them. And they're like, I think we can do this safely. Right. And then we'd convince the director, then the producers, then the studio. It's like it went through tough steps, and then eventually they said yes. But
post the Alec Baldwin thing, like obviously things got really intense. And by the way, good correction. Like you don't want anything to happen.
Yes.
But I was doing a movie and we were shooting in a gun store.
Oh, really?
With Jane Fonda, and I'm like, we're like moving all of the ammo. I mean,
my
like,
Lord,
there's a certain point. It's like, if someone's gonna run in here, load an automatic gun, and start shooting us,
right.
well then yes, we're all going to
it's
die.
a wrap.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a different situation. And I've done plenty, tons and tons of gunplay, and that's its own problem. Whether there's so many guns in so many movies, but
yes.
like. It's a pretty bright line in terms of how to do that, and you can do it safely. And there's a reason why, for 99.9999% of the time, it's done safely with good people who are just not doing stupid things.
Right, exactly. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your relationship with producers, because again, you have one of the jobs where you're riding the line between crew and production. Okay, so I mean, like with like safety issues, when you see something that's not, you don't think is safe, and you're getting pushback from producers, how do you deal with that?
Luckily, I feel like most producers I work with are safe. Like they don't push that. Mm-hmm. Both because in terms of studios are very sensitive about that.
Sure.
And they've gotten much better about that because of lawsuits, and they don't want to be irresponsible.
Yeah.
But even independent, like I feel like things have gotten much, much better. From it was during the 90s, like again, it was scary at times because you were just like, I started Roger Corman, like my first movie had a full body burn. Wow. On my first day, like, which, by the way, I think if I scheduled that, or I don't know if I was taking over, but I was like, my first day, I'm 22, 23.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, roll and light them up. Like, I don't know what to do. And my first full movie was 18 days, and we're blowing up cars. And like, how do I know what the right distance is?
Yeah. Where to safely
And Chris
place
Baffa,
right?
who you work with,
Yes.
that was like his first time DP, and that was the first time I worked with him. And it was just like craziness. And so things could go wrong a lot easier. And still mostly they didn't, but like it was much scarier. Now it's just lower budget things because, again, you don't have the support. Things can just happen because you don't have the resources to protect yourself. So, but with producers, they rely on me at this point. I have enough experience that they'll listen, and I won't push for something if I feel like it's unsafe. And also, I'm lucky to work in comedy where, like, let's be honest, do we need to do that?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, come on, like so we don't have to go quite as far.
Sure.
And it's not quite as dark and
Right.
It's not doing this.
Yeah, totally.
Horror story stuff, which you can get real weird and
Yeah.
suspending people and blood and all that stuff.
I love it. It's the fun stuff, man.
Yeah,
I do like comedies too.
So, like, here's another thing that we run into a lot of times too, where we have a scene and it's on location, and there's food and there's a bar and there's a ton of extras or whatever, and then the issue comes up of day players, how many day players we need. So, I want to talk about that. I mean, like sometimes, I come to you and I say, or maybe not you, but in particular, I don't think we've had it because we don't really do that big a thing. But I go to an AD and I'm like, can you talk to the producers about, how many people I need for this? Because again, we're trying to make sure that you're not waiting on us. Okay. So, I mean, do you find that
No, it's useful. Obviously, it has to be used judiciously, right? Because I definitely consider part of my job is to advocate for what's going to work best on set.
Right.
So if there's going to be potential delays, and usually at this point, if there's a big party, you need a food stylist or something like that, right? Food styling, that often walks the edge. Like whether you're going to be making the lasagnas over the weekend or you're going to get someone in. So, I'm always happy to lend my voice. Unless it's one of those situations where I'm like, they're not. I mean, I can do it, but I know it's not going to happen because that's not my call.
Right.
But I am always happy to help, and I appreciate the relationship that you would come to me, and say it, and then I would raise.
Well,
my
that's
voice,
what I want to say to like other younger prop masters. Where if you're having trouble sometimes with producers trying to get extra people, you might find an advocate in the first AD if you can convince that person that, listen, if we're not going to get this day, we're not going to, you're going to be waiting on me if I don't have this. Maybe that AD would be more inclined to say, hey, listen, I think they need this person.
It gets back to sort of taking responsibility if something goes wrong. It's like humility. It's it's not weakness to show that you might need help,
right?
Or that you're concerned.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you realize that that's not weakness. That's strength to be able to say that.
Yeah. You know what I wrote I was talking to the UPM when I was like working and trying to negotiate my day players for this film or whatever, and I said, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a deal. It was like if we ever go 50 or over on background, then that allots me one more like an extra man day for each of that time you do that. You know what our highest background count is? 48. Tell me that wasn't strategic.
That's pretty good.
Well, your lesson should always pick a weird number, like 47. Because as I set background, like what'll inevitably happen is I'll set round numbers, and then when I have to cut my numbers, I'll go from 50 to 49, 48, 47.
Right.
You're never going to notice the difference on screen.
Totally.
So I always start with the basic number, and then when I have to go down, I'll go down like to something like that. So just keep that in mind next time.
Thanks. So. What was like what was your worst show you've ever worked on?
Well, we were talking about a few mutual experiences, and actually there was a show called The Closer, which was with Keira Sedgwick, which it was a cop show, which is not my favorite in the world. There's only so many times I can do like a yellow tape around the dead bodies. All right, well, 3 cop cars. It was just, it's not the most scintillating, but it was a good show, great talent. I respect the producers and I respect the directors. They had a DP on it. It was the second season, and I was brought on. And the first AD, one of the first AD, had been run off by the DP. So I was warned, like, this guy he's tough. And I'm like, come on, me?
Right.
Everyone loves Ross. Come on. No problem. And I'd come from Nip Tuck because Greer, the producer, directed that. And I felt like I was in a good place. And this son of a bitch, he just would backstab me all the time. I knew the script supervisor, so she'd be like, oh my God, you walk away. And he just like talks bad about you.
Oh, no.
He was an asshole. He was just a real asshole.
Right.
And so what happened, we talk about these relationships. So it's great when you have the support. When you don't have the support, just like I can make your life miserable. Right?
100%.
Just turn to the director and go, this fucking prop's not ready again.
Right? Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly.
Right?
That's it.
And then that's the stink on you. So that's what this guy was doing. And so now I'm like, how long is it going to be to set up? People are like, I don't know. And I'm like, so now the actors are getting mad at me because I'm calling them in too late, too early. And it just got fucked.
Right.
So I ended up quitting because I was like, you guys are going to want to fire me, and I'll just leave. Like I do not need to be here.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I went to the office and I had a great time. So
Nice.
it was like,
Yeah.
but it was like really horrible to have like then actors turning on me
Right.
and understanding why, because they felt like
Sure.
they're ignorant. But I'm like,
Right.
I need to be able to call you to set.
Yeah, and exactly, and
know?
that's exactly
So-
how we feel when we experience that with ADs. I mean, it's just an ongoing joke about an AD yelling for props and you're standing behind them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Hold
I'm
them.
sure I've done that. Absolutely. I've done that with every department.
Do you ever UPM, or are you just strictly first AD?
I've directed a lot. I've produced a lot. I technically can UPM, but I don't love that. I like being on set.
And you like living longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny. I feel like I'd be a great producer. It's a lot
Yeah.
of my skills, but I like being on set.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
also ultimately, if I'm a producer, I feel like I'm making widgets.
Yeah.
And I'm not doing the same job, even though you're involved.
Well,
And
you're just managing people,
it's
not
just
really
different.
making art.
Right.
At that
So
point.
I like, that's what I love, is those relationships and those challenges and being right there at the sort of the tip of the spear with the key group. Right. But I've done a ton of my own projects. And so, you get to appreciate the more jobs you do, you appreciate the other jobs and you understand how they all interplay.
Yeah.
Are we rolling again? By the
Yeah,
way?
yeah, that's what I was saying. I was gonna come back and just say it's like about the like getting more people and the money issues. Like that's, I mean, it starts. I feel like at the unit production manager. I mean,
Yes.
whether you can, because things will go wrong and trickle down from there. Because I mean, we're as prop masters, we can identify when something's gonna happen on set before it is, and that goes into man days and getting what
Right.
you need. So if they're like, no, you can't do that, I think a good UPM, like if you can explain to them why you need it and
Yes.
exactly what it's there, they're gonna give it to you.
Right. And it's a big if.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the biggest issue.
I mean, and there's two different currents. One is we make the impossible happen every day.
Yes,
Right.
And
that's
that's
true.
our job, is
Yes.
to like go exceed expectations.
Right.
But then also a lot of, especially the projects we've been talking about, some of these like smaller, scrappier ones.
Yeah. Right.
There's sort of like the rules of the game, like
Sure.
do the best you can within
Exactly.
what we have.
Yep.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's clear when you're talking to a producer or UPM or even director, what are you expecting?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
if reach for the stars, but if I get you that, does that work too? And I've
Right.
been on shows where like hopefully the producer and director, they're like, that's cool, that's great.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's fun because then you often will still exceed expectations, right?
Right.
I
mean,
was
yeah.
just on a movie like that where it was
Totally.
like, we had nothing. Like there's just nothing for nothing.
Right.
And even I would be like, really, we can't do a little better than that? Like whatever they were.
Yeah.
But the director on that particular show was like, I love it, great. It's like great. You know what I mean? And
Sure.
he wasn't just being sloppy. He was
Right.
just honestly
Yeah.
understood.
Right.
We had 9.5 days to make the movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone, this is already a miracle.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
And that's nice when they can take the curse off you, so you're not sweating
Right.
and you're not going, I'm ruining my career.
Yes.
And then
Right.
that's
Well,
can be
but
fun.
again, the key factor there is that the director was a good guy and was respectful. So
the key actor.
Yeah.
Key actor, executive producer,
Right.
all that energy
Yes.
feeds all of us.
And
Because
there you go.
if you're like looking over your shoulder, nervous, you're gonna get hit. Like, oh God,
Yeah.
what? Then it's a horrible set environment. Nothing I can do as an AD can fix that.
Right.
But if it's like people are cool and no one's like
Yeah.
jumping down your throat,
Yeah.
then you feel empowered to
Exactly.
take chances.
And that's the thing. And so
Yes.
we went off mic so we could talk some shit about
absolutely.
about bad stuff that's happened to us. Because again, when everybody's being their best selves, you could get through anything, because this is what we do. We're fixers. We make things happen. But when you get on that show, and we've all been on them, and God bless anybody who hasn't been on one yet, you will at some point, where there's a bad player who's got a lot of power, whether it's the UPM or the director or a star or something like that. That's when the rubber meets the road, I mean,
Yeah.
as far as crew coming together. Okay. And I suspect that you're a guy who would rally in that situation, as far as protecting
I'm dead
your
inside.
crew.
I'm dead inside. That's what happens. I've been, especially in the 90s, like people
In
could
the
be
90s,
such assholes.
yes.
Like I had actors screaming at me in the middle of the set on a
Right.
16-hour day, saying he's going to rip my fucking head off.
Right.
while the second AD who I was dating is cheating on me in the trailer, but that's
Oh
another
my God.
conversation. Don't date
Should have brought her
your
to
crew.
Colorado.
Don't date your crew. So yeah,
Don't date your crew.
learn that one. But we wanted to break up after day one. But yeah, like so, you do. There are skills in learning how to get past
Right.
bad shows, bad people. We all have to deal with them.
Right.
And that is a skill, a callus you need to develop in this business. But also what we were talking about off mic was like also sometimes shows aren't a good fit. I mean, just like in sports, sometimes
Right.
you can be a great receiver, but you don't got a good quarterback. Maybe
Right.
it's not going to work.
Yeah.
And as you hopefully get older, you learn that. And so it's not as big a deal to go like, this isn't one of those. And
Yeah.
either get to the end of it,
Right.
show some resilience, or worst case, you just move on and find a better fit.
It is.
Right.
It's weird how true it is that like there's some sets that you like you're not allowed to have fun on. It feels
Right,
like
yeah.
like if you
They're
make a
just
joke,
no
everybody
fun.
will just kind of look at you like, oh, okay. Well, I guess this isn't a
Well,
fun set.
I love the environment when every department, particularly props, have that like to offer up jokes and
Right.
offer up gags
Right.
and have that freedom to
Yeah.
be creative as
Yeah.
everyone is, right? And the best people I work with, empower that and look for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then everyone becomes alive. And then
Yes.
I've seen so many times where it's like, the dolly grip's like, well, maybe you can say this. And you're like, hey,
Yeah.
hey, wait a second. That was pretty
Yeah,
good.
right?
I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of the suggestions are terrible, but once in a while, you'll get a good one. And, then that's great. That's good.
My team has like coordinated like the whole crew to dress like the gaffer to surprise him, and like
Right.
just like little stuff like this.
Yes.
It just keeps everything alive. That's just
Yeah,
like
that's always fun too,
That's
right?
what I mean.
Dress day or whatever they do that on. Whatever.
Yeah, we've done that. And we've done, the Fridays with the
Right.
giving out money and all those fun
Yeah.
things to
Right.
just make it more of a fun work environment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, there was something else I was going to say to you, Russ. What the hell?
Do you prefer comedies?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like comedy in
Yeah.
general. That's kind of
It's just more
what
fun.
I enjoy. There's less nights,
Yeah.
which I like.
Yeah.
I would never do a vampire show. Horror's very tough. A lot of gags and blood. Like you have to get those things right.
Yeah.
So
You're
there's a lot
talking to
of-
someone who did 4 years on Teen Wolf and then went into horror story.
Yeah.
So,
I'm on those Teen Wolf sets all the time with low budget films out in the
Yeah.
valley.
oh
where they
yeah.
moved-
I forget what they call
Capital
it.
Arts.
I'm
I'm at Cap Arts all the time.
Studios,
So
that's right.
There's a little party there.
yeah.
but
I lived there for
I don't like
ever.
kid shows because the pressure of getting kids done
And on
is
set,
intense.
oh, yeah, that's a lot.
It's just a lot.
and pumpkining and all that stuff. Yeah.
So it's just a lot of extra stress on top of that. I'm glad we don't have to do quite all the COVID stuff anymore. That was
Oh
another
my God.
level of insanity
Dude.
that I'm glad we're
Right? I mean,
past.
it
like
seems
as if
like
my
a
job isn't
dream.
hard enough.
Right? Seems like an old nightmare that
Oh
we
my
ever
God.
had to do all that.
Just factoring those things in, like
Yeah.
getting people tested 2 days before. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
and
the
especially with
extras.
comedy. I remember we were doing Mr. Mayor
Mm-hmm.
with Ted Danson when COVID came, and we shut down for 7 months. Okay, and it's like everything. I had all these video cameras and this whole media package from ISS, and they were like, "Hold it." We thought it was going to be 2.5 weeks, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and then 7 months later, we'd get it all out, dust it all off, and go back in. And then I remember we're setting up the shot, and there's Ted Danson and Vela and all these people like with the fucking gowns on and the shield
Yeah, the
and the
face shield.
mask, and they're trying to be funny.
Yeah.
And I just felt so bad for him. I'm like, oh my God, that's so hardcore, man. I mean, we're trying to do comedy here, and you're like dressed like it's the Contagion. So
Oh yeah.
I was part of the group at Universal that we were like one of the first groups back. We were shooting Superstore, and so they wanted to say like, all right, how are we getting back to filming? So in August, they were like, they had us come back, and they brought us onto our set, and they're like, all right. And everyone's, of course, with the face shields and the the whole
Right.
thing. And they had circles on the floor for where we were going to all stand. And we're like, what? And like,
Circles on the floor.
yes. So they had like the DPs here.
right,
Like you're about to get on a ride at
you had to have
Disneyland.
6 feet.
6 feet. So we're all standing there like, okay. And they're like, okay, so then if you were going to do a scene, like how would it work? And we're like, well, we got to get out of our circles because like they were just thinking of like a ped show,
Yeah,
like
they
a
had no
multi-camera,
idea what
something.
they were talking about.
I mean, this is going to be universe. So we're like, yeah, that's not going to work. So then like, I think Phil was there. He's just like, no, we'll do this. And then we'll have to wipe it down. And then we got into all of that madness.
Right.
But like they just didn't even fundamentally know how we were going to move through the space to do a filmed scene.
Yeah.
And we had to figure that out.
Yeah,
and
it was
just went from
crazy.
there. It was crazy.
I did pickups for some Disney movie, and it was like the first production that Disney did back from COVID. And they had these people and these COVID advisors who would literally come up and tell you've been talking too close, too long. And it's like the director and the actor.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, they have to have this communication.
Even as we're being tested 5 days a week.
Yeah.
This week at the same place that you went to. I know you were up on the hill.
Yeah, because we were doing, when I was doing Mr. Mayor, I was also finishing up Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Okay. And they were both Warner Brothers. And I remember I had to they were having me test every day for both shows.
Right.
And I'm like, is there any way we could just like share the information? And they took it all the way up to the top at Warner Brothers, and the answer came back no. So I had to run back and forth between CBS Radford and Warner Brothers testing twice a day.
That was another thing that was hard to when it was the negotiating staffing. It's like, oh, no, you can't have an extra person for this scene, but we do have 15 people timing your conversations to see if you're talking too long. It's like, what?
Yeah, no, I just hate having people on set in general who are not actually doing things just because it's more people to talk, it's more people to get out of the way. It's
right.
And so it was not my favorite unit to have people around just.
Yeah. To go past this, I do have so private rehearsals.
Okay.
Prop
let's
people.
talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
That's a good one.
Because there are people that, like, I mean, it's a barrier sometimes, depending on who your first AD is, that you have to get past, whether it be a TV show or movie, to be like, no, we need a prop person in there for the private rehearsal. What are your thoughts?
You set me up pretty good there because I said it was really important to get the props to set up the scene. But now I want to kick you out of the room. So how does that work?
Yeah, you bastard.
But, life is a conundrum. Sometimes it's many things. Because I want both.
Yeah.
I just, being sincere, I want both. I want them to have the props, but then I want you out of the room just because I want minimum people in the room.
Right.
And I can't really have that. And so it'll just vary on the space and all of that, right?
Right.
Because
right?
And also, like, how important is the prop and how, like, what is it?
Right.
Because ideally, I mean, in a perfect world, I almost wouldn't have the script supervised. I would just have the director in the room and the DP, like, just to keep it so they're just doing their thing.
So they don't need props then, right?
Well, right. Well,
but they do. But usually the people I
on
work
the
with,
project.
they also, depending on what it is, they know, okay, this is just they're holding a pen and a piece of paper. Or if it's something more important, they hide in the corner, and that's fine. And I understand that too.
That's the key.
Have I probably erred in one direction or the other? I'm sure. Right. But that would be, the more important the prop is, the more important it is that they're there on set.
And it varies from show to show as well. I mean,
absolutely.
And directors, there's some directors, and again, I think, from a property person's perspective, it's good to have that. That's why it's great to have the relationship with the director and the first AD and the actors that you have. So when those situations come up, they're fine to have you in the room, okay? Because again, I mean, you're not going to be like standing next to the camera or, you got to find a place to hide, okay? So you can hear what's going on. Because, I mean, how many times, Mikey, have you been on a show where they go into a rehearsal and then they come out of the rehearsal and they're like, okay, pictures up, everybody get ready. And then they have this list of stuff that came out of the rehearsal that you have to get. And it's like, holy shit, now I'm jamming. Whereas if I'm in the room, I could be texting my crew saying, go get this fucking thing, okay? So again, it's a great relationship so you could have it. If you could be low key, that's the key.
Yeah, you got to be a fly on the wall. But it's also, I've done in the beginning of seasons or the beginning of shows, I like really fought for it, and they're like, "Oh no, we it's a private rehearsal." And we're like, "Well, okay." And then literally 5 minutes later, they're like, "All right, we need props in here to walk through the thing." It's like,
it's another reason I like comedies because also the rehearsals are a lot less precious.
Yeah.
Right.
The horrors are.
They get so intense. These
complex.
dramas. Oh my god, someone stepped on a floorboard. Oh, what's going on? Like it's just
Right.
like no, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we doing? We've got a guy in
not
latex
brain
fucking
surgery.
a bat up top, and we're getting all worried. Like the closer was like that too. Everyone's
Yeah,
like, oh my
I
God,
know.
we're making art. Just calm the fuck down. And also, like in the sets were St. Dennis and Superstar, like they're big, so there are no
Right.
private
Totally.
rehearsals. But it is a pressure point that I'm very sensitive to, because also what your argument is, well, yeah, then the gaffer's like, well, I could be thinking ahead and getting the things, and everyone has a good reason to be watching, but at the same time, it's like, what's the minimum effective dose
Sure.
so that they feel free to do their thing without everyone.
Right.
Right.
Because
I
also,
get it.
inevitably, someone isn't paying attention, and then there's walkie goes. So it's like, it's always, it's
Yeah.
an imperfect.
Yeah, you're not always
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
get it. Sometimes you get it, and
Yeah.
if you can, it's great.
Just you guys are always wrong, and I'm usually right, and we'll just figure it out, you know. And sometimes it changes.
Of course.
Hilarious. Oh my God. What did we miss? What are we missing here? It feels like there's more.
Pre-calls? Did you say
Pre-calls.
you wanted to
Thank
talk about
you.
pre-calls?
That's it. God, I gotta write more notes. Yeah. So yeah.
Pre-calls, yeah, I got to go, but it's great talking.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, again, it's just like adding extra day players. Okay. I mean, you guys are up against the wall. I mean, we're always having the conversation about pre-call. Okay. There's what I want. There's what the producers want, which is none, and then there's where we end up.
Yeah, and then the philosophies have changed because a lot of studios now have the 14-hour rule where they don't want people working 14 hours.
Oh,
They
right.
don't
That's
wanna-
the universal rule, right?
Yeah, so they don't want, people that I don't want that to affect my shoot day.
Yeah.
That I have to get people off the clock with the prep and it depends on, there's different attitudes for it. And usually it's across, it's also props, camera, because
Right.
again, everyone has a good reason for wanting it. I have a good reason for wanting it because then I'm hitting the, call time. We're hitting the
Right,
road
yeah.
and we don't want to waste time
Well, that's it. I mean,
setting things up, but then at the same time, there's certain days where it's probably more important and certain
Sure.
days where it's like you can be unpacking the truck or getting ready while we're rehearsing and setting up.
Is that easier not to hit in comedy though? Do you generally have lesser hours like on those
We do.
shows?
oh my
Yeah,
God,
yeah,
we're
'cause
I mean, St. Dennis, man. Some days you guys are going home before I am.
I mean, most comedies, I usually schedule my days to be like 11-hour days.
Oh, yeah.
On almost every comedy, 10 and a half, 11 plus lunch, and that's it. Because it can get done that way, and we have 2 or 3 cameras, and
Well, that's it. I mean, we're in one set mostly.
yeah, one script day,
Yeah.
one set. If we can't do that,
Yeah.
then we could be doing it by lunch, but
Right.
like my Modern Family used to. But so yeah, the pre-calls just matters. But like you asked before, like if you need a pre-call, if it's going to slow me down, which is the language I understand, and you tell me that, then I will
Right.
advocate for you.
There you go.
That's how you get me.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's
Dude,
it. It's
I
all
think
about
this might slow you down, but don't hit it too hard.
Right,
Because then I know
exactly.
what you're doing, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I know what
Well,
you're doing.
yeah.
You
Again,
got to
I mean,
be
yeah.
real nice with it.
But again, let's not to go back to Phil Shea, but Phil Shea was a master at getting it. Like more people on. I've heard stories about he had more freaking assistants on shows than I mean he's a master at it.
Yeah, well, he also connected. He connected with the showrunners.
Yes.
and really gave them anything they could possibly imagine, and then so he became invaluable to them.
Right.
In their heads, and then so the line producer is not going to push back on certain
Right.
things, and I've seen that across other departments.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I mean that gets into sort of smart politicking in terms
Yes.
of who is the person. Same thing like our longevity. If I alienate the number one on the call sheet cast person, I'm
done.
going to be out, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, like I'm not going to be fake, but like I know to service that number one, that in the top
course.
3 or 4. Like if and then there's opportunities if you're smart when they're looking for something and they see that you hustle and you care.
Yes.
There's a chance to build that bond, and that's really important
Yeah.
as you're working on different shows. It's like know who to take care of,
Right.
and just show them that.
Right.
It almost needs to be a little performative.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
For the producer, for the director, and for those cast people.
No, it is.
And if you get those locked in,
Yeah.
you're good.
Yeah.
Right.
Other
Right.
shit can go wrong. It's
Yeah.
okay, but you got to take care of them, and they got to know that you're going to take care
Yeah.
of them.
Right.
It's a
Exactly.
trust thing. Yeah.
It's a trust thing.
It's a trust thing.
And that's fair. But it's
Absolutely.
fair from
Yeah.
their end, too. So, like, if a key actors, like, like, even just like, can I go to the bathroom or water? I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
You do,
And that's
not a question, not like, like they sense that.
Yeah.
right.
And then they know you're not an ally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good point too, because like on Mr. Mayor with Holly Hunter, she's a very proppy actor. I mean, and she had ideas all the time, and so that's another thing that we have to deal with sometimes as props, where we get requests from actors for things, okay, and then we have to make sure that you transfer that knowledge onto the first AD and the director, okay, because a lot of time, because sometimes she would come up with things, and you'd be like, yeah, sure, Holly, I could get whatever you want, but then I got to go to the director and say, just so you know, Holly's asking for A, B, and C.
Yes.
Okay, and they're like, fuck, what the hell's that? I don't want that. And then you're like in the middle. Okay, so you got to find a way to ride that line between, and sometimes she would be like, I don't want anybody to know this. It's between you and me. We're going to do this thing. I'm like, okay. And then they're like, what's Holly cooking up? I'm like, I don't know. At some point she's going to show you, and and then you're in the middle of that ground there where you have to try to make sure that production, the AD and the first AD and the director know what's going on, but at the same time, trying to give the actor what they want as well.
So there's an important issue that you brought up, which is it's a little bit about the passing information and taking responsibility that I'm sure a lot of prop people, you want to do a great job.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
And you don't want to be constantly going to people like, let me see, I don't know. You want to just get it done, right?
Yeah.
And then you take on things and they can go wrong.
Yeah.
Or you'll take responsibility for like Holly's prop.
Sure.
And you're not telling enough people because you just want to make it right.
Yeah.
And so again, with experience, you learn about the things you pass through. And the things you just kind of keep to yourself. And there's an art to it, but especially as an AD too, like there's certain things I take pride in that, like producer never has to worry about what's going on set. But if something's happening, I also take pride in, I'll let them know with time that they can react.
Right.
They're not surprised.
Right.
And they can deal with it. Because if you go too long, too far doing it yourself because you want to do it, you want to take responsibility, then you can get fucked.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you got to learn when it's a smart time to go like to the AD, like, yeah, I'm having trouble sourcing this or whatever, and a time. So then again, you can be helped.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you're not on
100%.
an island, right?
Right.
And I have to do that all the time
Yeah.
with directors, producers, and all of that is walk that line.
Yeah.
And it gets easier as you get older, but we all do. And there's some also, that's what's great. That's why they get paid more is they got to deal with it at a certain point. That's not
Exactly.
going to happen. It's like you go as far as you can and then you
Right.
go, we need to tell
Yeah.
mommy and daddy.
Speaking of getting fucked, have you ever been fired?
No. Wait, I'm trying to think. I've quit twice. Did I get fired? No, I should have been fired. When I was a PA, one night, again, I'm like 22 or something.
Sure.
I had all the walkies and I took them home to charge them. But first I went out for some drinks and got home late,
Forgot to
overslept. Like I got a call and they were in Glendale on top of a mountain or something. And I had
Right.
all the walkies and they were not charged. So I'm driving to set and like, as soon as like, all right, give me the walkie. Beep, beep. That was bad. And I think it was like the same day or another day, like right near there where we had low budget movie helicopter footage. And I would take the film to Photochem in Burbank every day. As my PA on. And so I brought the footage in, and like a few days later, like, oh, we got all the footage from that day except the helicopter footage. Where is it? And I'm like, no, I turned everything in.
Yeah.
And they're looking, and they're trying to figure it out. They're checking. And like a week later, I look in my trunk, and there it is.
Oh, no.
And it was still in my black Honda Civic during summer, sitting there for like a week. And I was like, good news, bad news, guys. I found the footage.
Yeah.
So, I was really good when I was good.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was able to survive these things. But like even the second AD, when I screwed up with the walkies, he said, you got one fuck up.
Yep.
You had it. Do not fuck up again.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was...
I had that same exact experience where I totally fucked up, and that was their response was, well, that's good. You're young. It's good you got it in soon because no more.
That and I almost
that scares
quit.
the shit out of you.
I almost quit the business too because with this same guy, he was a second. I was a second. First film, like you just looked up, like how many prop people were on that one show.
Yeah, yeah.
I was on a show where I think it was about like God. The show it was called like Angels and Devils or something. Right. I think God hated the movie because Everyone got fired. It was an Alan Smithy fake director.
Oh my God.
Only the DP stayed on, but it was like 9 dolly grips. We were the second AD team to come in. The cast was horrible. Everyone was horrible. People died on it. Like security
no.
people. Like there was a big fight scene, and the stunt guy didn't show up. Like it was miserable. And I was working 16 hours a day, $400 for a 6-day week. So little money, and I was so exhausted that I would like do set striking at the end of the week. Because they'd pay me another $100, and I'm like,
Yeah.
carry stuff. And then the grips would quit at the end of each week because they weren't getting. And then I'd be lugging sandbags
Oh, my
up 3
Lord.
stories, just like. But whatever, you're 23, 24.
That's right.
But I was going to quit the business because the cast was insane, and I was trying to round them all up and get them through the works, and no one was listening. And was it Shelley Winters was like just
Oh my God,
yelling and
Shelley
screaming. It was like,
Winters.
and I was just like sitting in the honey mag and just shattered. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not meant for this business.
Yeah.
And the same guy who said, you get one fuck up, he goes, just make it to Friday and we'll replace you, because it was like Tuesday.
Right.
By the end of the week, like I had the strength to continue, and I
Yeah.
finished the movie.
How much longer did it have?
It was like 3 more weeks or something.
Okay.
It wasn't like crazy because it was
Sure.
lower, but it was, but it was. It also taught the lesson like, just one step in front of the other.
Yeah.
I love the phrase, the way you eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And so even on your worst days, like just take it, get through it. 'Cause
Yeah.
You learn to survive, and it's, you shouldn't need to quit or be fired.
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
often, you know?
guess
And then for some people, it's not for you. And then you just
Yeah,
move out of
for
Los
sure. At
Angeles.
least
And
you
there's
know.
plenty of other jobs.
That's it.
Plenty of maybe it makes sense for us anyway.
I feel like everybody I've known in this business has had that
Right.
tipping point right there. They're like, I
Exactly.
just don't know if I want to do this.
So it's good to
And
know
it's
that,
like-
that's there, right?
Yeah.
So it's not just you going through it. Just know that that's just kind of part of it too. It's a wall you got to break through at some point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or
a
leave.
wall of pain.
Wall of pain.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And just get a drinking or drug habit like the rest of us.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, that's how you deal with it.
Exactly.
You'll be fine. You'll be dead by 62.
There you go. That's right. Isn't I always heard that there was like some ridiculous
So like 55, I don't know.
55 for
I mean,
ADs.
Yeah, I'm I'm almost 54, but yeah, I've heard that. I mean, I think there's some truth in terms of the stress
Sure.
and all of that.
I guess it
But I would
depends on
hope
how you take it.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
that's why you have to find your happy place and either do it and be happy and be joyful. I
Right.
enjoy my job.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then just don't do it.
Right.
I mean, the more recent shows that you've done, I mean, it seems like you've stayed with a lot of the same crew for the past chunk of years. And I've heard through the industry that they're some of the more fun people for a whole crew to be with, and very positive. My cousin's the gaffer on the on
Oh,
those
okay.
shows too. Justin's
Justin's
yeah.
great.
So I've just heard from him. He's like, oh, well, like there's something in me that wants to do something more creative. He's like, it's so happy over there. It's
It
so
really is.
comfortable. He's
I agree. I mean, I've made a lot of promise. Like when I was 23, I was like, if I'm not directing in 2 years, I'm leaving LA. And then you're
Right.
like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But one of the things I never wanted to do was a long series because like that's not the fun of filmmaking. It's like
Yeah.
meeting new people and different challenges.
Totally.
And that's not what I got into it for. But it is such a good group of people.
Yeah. I mean,
And
Justin
with the change of the industry, it's
Sure.
even more hard to find. But also like. You can still do other projects, but it is a good group. It is pleasant,
Yeah.
and there's enough challenges and changes and funny people. It's
Right.
It is good, and,
Yeah.
and I'm thankful
Yeah.
to be on something
Yeah.
like that.
that can, if anything, can alleviate some stress. That's probably.
For
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, and it's
Like
good
I could
to-
stand to be around these people for 12 hours a day.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, it's good,
absolutely.
and everyone's nice. The producers,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they bring nice people in the cast, and
Yes.
then so it all spills over.
Yeah,
so.
no, I mean, I can't get over how quickly everything gelled on St. Dennis season 1. You know, the chemistry with the actors and the writing is just so amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny.
I mean,
Hope you guys can get a
So,
few more seasons.
yes,
Keep it going.
knock on wood, baby.
Especially now.
Yeah,
No.
Tough
exactly.
times.
Yeah. We're thankful.
Let's get more TV going.
Cool. Well, Ross, that was fun.
I hope I
Yeah.
opened the veil into the mind of an AD. You weren't horrified by what you saw. Too much.
Well, everything that was horrific, we took off mic, so that was good.
That's right.
Gotta stop saying. People would be like, "Let me get that."
I know.
I want the additional footage.
Yeah.
That's
The
right.
uncut version.
The uncut version. At some point, maybe when we all retire, we could just release things.
Yeah,
If
sure.
we have the retired people in. It's those are like, "You sure you don't want to cut anything out?" They're like, I don't care.
I'm out. Fuck it. I'm on blast.
That's right. Like Paula Schreiber, man. She was just
yeah.
I'm unloading. She didn't care. It's beautiful. Yeah, it was awesome. Well, cool. Well, I hope
Thank
to
you for
see you
having
on
me.
set soon.
Yeah,
We'll
sooner rather than
see.
later.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Hopefully get right.
Maybe by the time this thing here, no, it won't. We're still got ways to go. But
Yeah, this one will probably. I mean, opening the veil again. This one's probably coming out 2 months from now. But
okay. Well, we'll
Yeah.
be close by then.
Right.
So hopefully.
yeah.
All right, Mikey.
Yeah.
Take her out.
Now that we're on, we're still on video. Pass me the magazine behind you. Let's show that real quick. So, everybody out there, before we close out, we got a magazine now. Prop Culture. Yeah, check that out. So if you, by the time this comes out, there should be a second issue that'll be out by this point. So, if you go to propertymastersguild.org, you can start subscribing to that. If you're a member, you just get them in the mail. So
I know, it was beautiful.
Yeah. So, and members will continue getting them. So you're already part of the sign up list. You remember, if you're not, and you want to receive the Prop Culture magazine, they come out once a quarter. So we get 4 a year, and they'll tell you what is happening in the prop world. Interviews with prop masters, just about shows, just key props, about the award show. They'll keep you updated about it. So.
And Chris Call is the centerfold in the next edition, isn't that true?
Well, I had a story in this first edition, which called Anatomy of a Scene.
Yeah.
Where you break down actually what we do.
That one?
But then then of course, yes, there was American Pie.
And there's Chris's face right there
Oh,
on
yeah.
another
Oh
question
my
and
God,
answer.
you don't need to see my face anymore. But yes.
So check it out. It's a lot of it's really cool. It's a good read. So, but aside from that, if you see a movie that you like the props in, make sure to reach out to the prop master and give him props. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into another episode of Prop Talk, the official podcast of the Property Masters Guild, brought to you by real working and retired prop masters and associates. If this is your first time listening, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment anywhere you're hearing it. If you'd like to have more information on the Property Masters Guild, or have any question for us here at Prop Talk, or have a suggestion for any prop masters you want to see us interview or on here, go to propertymastersguild.org and go ahead and you can send a message to us there. You could also message us on Instagram or any of the other socials at _the PMG, or just look up the Property Masters Guild. That's it. Until next time.
Hang in there, people.